Welcome back, travelers, to Legendary Lore! Or yes, we are back. We are doing it again. It's been roughly 2 weeks since I've had a chance to put anything out. Joe has been basically running amok during the Phyrexian invasion, and we're about to catch him, so it should be good, and we should be able to hopefully contain him and have him back for good. But in the meantime, let's just talk about the beginning of the March of the Machine story, which, oh my gosh, it's interesting. Like, there's a lot of potential, and the cards tell a much richer story than we actually got from the actual short stories themselves. That said, the short stories, for the most part, were also really well put together. So, you see, essentially what happens is that it starts off with Elish Norn. And it's from her perspective, which is interesting because, again, Elish Norn is a leader of Phyrexia. She is new Phyrexia. And it's cool because we kind of get to see this dynamic of a being that is so, like, they're so full of themselves that they think that there's no way they can be wrong. Is that ideology of, like, well, everybody else is wrong, so anybody that disagrees with me is wrong, which means that everything I say has to be true. To the point where at the end of the story, it actually just ends with Elish Norn listening to other people telling her own writings, like repeating what she said back to her. And so that's a fun little deal they have going there. But what's cool is that this picks up immediately after the one storyline. It's literally just the three planeswalkers they're right there. Kaito, Kaya, Tyvar, they're just there. And Elish Norn's like, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm not going to infect you or anything. I'm going to let you go, so you can tell everybody what's about to happen. Which is a classic supervillain move of thinking like, oh, I'm so impressive and so powerful, but I need somebody to tell the tale. It's just bad writing. There's no like way for them to get out. And I've noticed that's kind of a thing that's going to happen continuously. Is it's going to be, the Phyrexians are such a large threat that anybody that is able to get away or stop it in some way, it feels lackluster by sheer mention of it. Which reminds me, the next thing that happens is that Sheoldred gets brought in by Luca and Ajani and then gets decapitated. And that's the last thing we see from Sheoldred, is her getting decapitated. Now, obviously, we had this whole story with Dominaria where she could turn herself into a bunch of little spiders. So the idea of her head being removed from her torso being enough to kill her, kind of dumb. Doesn't make a ton of sense. So it's likely that that's just a cop-out way of them being like, if we want to bring her back, we can. If we don't want to bring her back, we don't have to, kind of thing. But yeah, her new artwork does not show her decapitated. It shows her like attached to one of the Realm Breaker's branches. So there's a little bit of a disconnect as far as the story goes. And then, of course, we have the planeswalkers themselves, each of the Phyrexianized planeswalkers, where she basically starts talking to them to try and figure out, okay, well, where do you want to go? And it's great because we have her whole thing with Luca, which is hilarious because we already know Luca's dumb. We know that Luca's, like, before he was completed, he was basically just a monster person. Not even in the sense that he liked monsters, because he hated them. He just was a creature of domination and believed in the survival of the fittest, like the might makes right. That was his entire shtick, even before then. So that's essentially what we're seeing here. So basically she goes, so Luca, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? He goes, Ikoria. She's like, okay, what do you plan on doing on Ikoria? He goes, I'm gonna complete it. She's like, yes, Luca, that's the plan. But how are you going to complete? He goes, I'm going to bond with the monsters. And she's like, Luca, you're going to bond with the monsters? He's like, yes. And then all the humans will fear Phyrexia. And she's like, they're supposed to fear Phyrexia already. He's like, yeah, but they'll fear it more. And then, of course, obviously, Luca goes off. And Tamio even says, like, he's going to die. This goon is going to die. He's going to get himself killed. And the Elish Norn's like, it's fine. Whatever happens, happens. If he succeeds, then Ikoria is taken for New Phyrexia. If he fails, then we'll deal with him just like we just dealt with Sheoldred. And it's like, okay, cool. And then she goes, okay, Tamio, what about you? Where do you want to go? She's like, Kamigawa. She's like, okay, why? She goes, for my family. She's like, for what? She goes, for my extended previous family before I understood what family truly was. She's like, that's right. And it's cool because we get this moment where Tamio basically like looks at her scrolls and like she hesitates. She's frozen in front of the portal to Kamigawa and she doesn't really want to go through it. And Alishnor's like, was there a problem? Tamio's like, no, nothing. Nothing happened. I'm fine. Let's go. And so Tamio goes to Kamigawa. And so we're kind of seeing this little seeding of everything going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Everybody's getting set up for the story to come. And so, and by the way, the whole time Nisa's the one setting these things up because she was Phyrexianized and she's obviously a giant tree person now. So she's able to just fuse with the world tree in a sense. She can speak to it and will it to move wherever she wants it to. It's kind of the perfect person to have on your side when it comes to controlling a thing. If only there was somebody else who had some kind of control over trees. But you know, that's how the story goes. So basically, Ajani is then pulled up and she's like, okay, Ajani, where are you going to go? And he goes, yes, Alara. She's like, no, that's not where you're going. And he goes, but Luca and Tamio went to their home. She goes, yes, they went to their homes, but that's not where you need to be. Now, the reason is because Elishnorn wants to send him specifically to Theros. And that's because of a whole litany of things. There's the fact that Theros is where Ajani basically became the mentor of heroes. Yeah, that's where he basically got his persona that he currently has. It's where he bonded with the Leonin there and finally found a pride that he could give his Leonin grin to. It was there that Elspeth herself was killed and reborn, and he went on a whole rampage making it so people hated Heliod and basically decrying the gods. So all of that happens. Elspeth is basically the main thing that Norn is worried about. Because Elish Norn, who doesn't sleep, has been having waking nightmares of Elspeth coming and destroying her. But she's like, they're not going to happen because I saw her get obliterated. She was erased by the Silex. She was killed as we know her. There's no way that she'll ever return. Because she got the full impact of the Silex. And so all of these different things are happening. And Johnny's like, okay, you know what? Let's go. I'll do it. I'll go there, and it's going to be glorious. And the gods themselves will be Phyrexianized. And that's basically his plan. He's going to go and he's going to indoctrinate as many mortals, and then the gods will become Phyrexianized simply by belief. So that's the plan. That and also possibly seeding oil throughout the Nyx itself. It's unclear. But yeah, eventually it gets down to Atraxa, who is here, and she's like, oh, well, before we get to Atraxa, there's Nahiri. Nahiri goes to Zendikar. That's her old deal. She's like, there's a super weapon there that I'm going to find, and I'm going to use it to strengthen Phyrexia. And Elishnor's like, right, do that. Great idea. Sure. But at the same time, we also see that Nahiri already has like a form of rebellion against Elishnorn because of the fact that Elishnorn basically is like, okay, yeah, show me Zendikar. And Nisa pulls up the elves. And Nahiri's like, nah, forget those goons. We gotta go to the Skyclaves. And then they show the Skyclaves, and Elishnor's like, ooh, artifacts. Beautiful. Yes, no flesh. And so that's why Nahiri goes there. And Nahiri's the one in charge of it. We'll get to see more about that later. But yeah, essentially what happens is that we get through all the planeswalkers. Vraska, oh my gosh. Vraska is possibly the coolest Phyrexian as far as like her method of Phyrexianizing people. And we'll get to that in a few episodes. But basically she goes to Ravnica because she's going to basically just deal with all those. That's not even mentioned here. She just goes on her own, like of her own accord. She goes, and essentially you can already guess her plan is to turn all of Golgari into a true swarm, and then of course also turning the anybody else that happens to be there of the other guilds. Now that said, we have Atraxa, like I was saying. Atraxa is an angel, and Halo is extremely effective against angels. I mean, against Phyrexians, and it comes from angels. So a Phyrexianized angel is very interesting. It would only be possible if there was an angel that had lost all of its halo, essentially. It has to be emptied of its essence of angelhood to be Phyrexianized, which is a really weird thing that was never brought up in the original Phyrexian storylines. We had the entire realm of, the entire Saren realm, her place she made, that was full of angels and built on angel energy, and we didn't see any of that when it came down to it because they were all easily corrupted and the whole place fell apart with sleeper agents. So we know that the Phyrexians' influence in the angels realm actually caused it to weaken and crumble. So we do know that the concentrated black mana, concentrated white mana it causes a clash, but the oil itself is not black mana. We've seen that the oil is just this entity, this mycosynth, it's colorless, and it affects all the colors. So it being affected specifically by angel power puts it in a really weird spot, kind of hearkening back, I think, intentionally to old Phyrexia and the way that Yawgmoth was obliterated by pure concentrated white mana. But that was because he was pure concentrated black mana, because Phyrexia used to be mono black. So, well, mono black essentially. There were obviously things like Sabotavak and Erte and Volrath and things like that weren't quite those colors, but you get the idea. That's what they had planned. That's what they did then. It was pure black versus pure white, and then that was why there was that conflict. But here we have Atraxa, and Atraxa is being sent to New Capenna. Again, the idea of sending an angel to go to the land of angels, where they were, which was Phyrexia's biggest loss, barring, of course, the original Phyrexia getting blasted in the face with a giant moon. But essentially, the plan is to go there and destroy it. She doesn't want anybody in New Capenna to become part of her new Phyrexian Legion. She wants them to become Phyrexian if they're just useful, and then destroy them afterwards. So the idea is just to infect everybody, destroy everything, raise the place to the ground, destroy the entirety of Park Heights, and watch it all crumble down around them. That is the intent, and Atraxa is sent to do that job, because Atraxa is obviously her, like, number one. So this all leaves Elishnor essentially alone, listening to everything going on around her, and she's just like, okay, this is good. This is the plan. We're gonna win. There's nothing they can do, except, she just decided to send all of her concentrated best warriors across the multiverse on their own. There's no way that can go. Right?